All right, say good morning, everybody. I know this is a small group and we're doing virtual, so let's just go ahead and call the meeting to order. Let's start with some introductions. I'm Rich McFall, Business Account Manager with Nebraska VR and current co-chair of the CTC, and I'll kick it off to Court.
I am Cord Barber, Transportation Planner with MAPA, and I'll pass it to Donna.
Donna Montoya-Gray, City of Papillion. And I'll pass to Amanda.
I knew you were going to say that. Amanda Parker, City of Bellevue. And I guess I'll go to Corey.
Hello, Corey Hale with Community Alliance. And I'll pass it to Cale.
Yep, Cale Broderson, City of La Vista. Pass it to Brandon.
Brandon Smith, Omaha Public Schools.
All right, what about the phone starting with 712? All right, Tammy?
Tammy Jensen, City of Council Bluffs.
Good guess. I did not think that was you. I was waiting for the other one.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see the other one.
No, I meant there's T. Jensen. I'm assuming you're just
Yes.
joining audio by the phone. Yeah.
Yes, I am. I don't have sophisticated technology here.
It's all good. The other Tammy that just joined. Say Carlos, I know you're just getting here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Carlos, Transportation Data Manager at MAPA.
All right, and Tammy Bradley from Florence Home introduced in the chat with no microphone, so that works too. Court, so are we kicking it straight off to Lindsay?
We would if Lindsay was here. Lindsay decided to abandon me and go to Norway for a couple of weeks. So I will be presenting the draft 2025 civil rights policy.
Lucky you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple job. I know enough about it. So the purpose of the civil rights policy is basically what you're seeing here on the screen is basically all agencies that receive federal funds. We have to ensure that our activities meet the requirements of several interrelated laws and executive orders that pertain to accessibility and prevent discrimination of any group that has a right to participate and be included in the public planning process. So basically, this is our civil rights policy kind of takes all of that and says how MAPA will ensure that. So we have basically a specific requirement to update it every 3 years. Basically, what the policy entitles is our compliance with Title VI, limited English proficiency, and also the Americans with Disabilities Act. And it kind of is just how we're going to implement complying with the regulations. And then we have our complaint process in there for Title VI and the Americans with Disabilities Act. Since the previous policy, we've updated demographics in there, and we've kind of brought it up to date with guidance from Nebraska and Iowa DOTs. And then also we've updated our complaint form. We've looked at translation options for MAPA's website, and also started to develop a more formalized staff training program, particularly with onboarding materials for new staff. Something that we want to share with this group, and that we're sharing with all of our committees, is a committee demographic survey. So this kind of goes along with the civil rights policy. We'll be asking committee members to basically provide us with some information on who they are effectively. It's confidential, shouldn't take any more than 5 minutes. All questions are optional. There's the URL on the screen here, And then I don't believe I've sent this out in an email. I don't think Lindsay has either, but after the meeting, I'll send this around to the committee so everybody has access to the URL and can complete the survey. It'd help us out a lot if you would participate and provide us your information. We'll basically be providing this information aggregated. So we're just basically lumping it all together to say, you know, how old is everybody, and what's the racial makeup of our committees and everything like that. So we're asking this of our board and all of our committees. The general timeline for the civil rights policy, we started updating it around summertime this year. Right now, we're taking it around to all of our different committees, and we started a public comment period earlier this month on December 12th. That will run through January 6th. And then ultimately, we're looking to have this adopted on January 23rd. What I believe we're planning on doing is we wanted to give the CTC kind of a preview and let you know that it was out there. The draft is on the website. You can take a look at it. We would like to get whatever feedback you have on the civil rights policy. If you have recommendations for you know, how we're approaching things or anything like that, we would love for you to provide us that information. And then we intend to come back in January at the next in-person CTC meeting and get a recommendation from the CTC. It sort of depends on what kind of feedback we get from you, either during this meeting or individually, because you're welcome to send us emails or give us a call and chat with us about the civil rights policy if you'd like. We weren't 100% sure if the CTC wanted to make a formal recommendation, but it was something we wanted to kind of open the doors to. If you were interested in making a recommendation, effectively you would be making a recommendation to TTAC, and then TTAC will make a recommendation to the board. So there will be a recommendation in there from your parent committee. But we kind of went back and forth on whether we wanted to, I guess, force the CTC to come to a single recommendation, as opposed to letting you provide comments individually if you want to as your separate agencies. With that, I think that's about it. Yeah. Are there any questions, comments about this right now? I don't know if anybody had a chance to take a look at it.
To kind of elaborate what Court was talking about is when we met a few weeks ago, kind of planning for this meeting, we were truly trying to find out if it made the most sense for your own agency to put in their own like kind of public comment. Maybe you've got something that's very specific to your organization or something like that, or bringing it to the CTC of essentially as a wide range of things. You know, are we okay with it? Are we not? So I guess both ways are completely open. Me personally, I don't know a whole lot about how we've done this in the past. So if anybody else does know that, please speak up.
Well, I'm not really hearing anything, but if like I said, if anybody wants to send Lindsay or I an email or give us a call and chat about it, we'd be more than happy to take your comments. And then, as I also said, I'll send around the link to the committee demographic survey. We would very much appreciate if you would fill that out so that we can provide an accurate picture of our committee makeups to our board of directors.
In Court, if I'm understanding the process correctly, you're looking for the CTC to vote on either just our opinion or that we agree at the next CTC meeting related to the new civil rights policy, correct?
I think it's not necessarily mandatory. We don't have to have a recommendation from the CTC. I kind of wanted to feel things out with the group at this meeting. See what kind of feedback we get individually. And I'll say it'll probably be up to you and Melanie whether we put that on the agenda for the January meeting. But we can discuss that in our agenda setting meeting, and unless if anybody feels strongly about the CTC providing a recommendation to TTAC, TTAC hasn't made a specific request. They've had the same presentation. They got it earlier this month, and I don't remember if we specifically got a recommendation on the previous policy from the CTC. I think we probably did, given the members' proximity to groups that are impacted by the policy. I think it wouldn't be a bad thing to get a CTC recommendation, but we also wanted to make sure that we definitely wanted to make sure we were getting individual comments, if there were any, from each agency, so that you didn't necessarily feel like it was just the CTC recommendation and that was it. If any agency has a particular question or recommendation, we will absolutely take that.
Well, I will share this. I just clicked the link, and this is honestly the first time that I've really taken a look at the draft of the policy. Personally, I'm a big believer on not giving homework to a committee. That if we're going to truly vote on something, we need to go through this page by page during our allotted scheduled time. However, I see that this is 49 pages. So, which kind of goes against what my comfort zone is for the CTC. So I would love to hear from someone else on whether, because for one, I don't feel right voting on it if we're not going to take a deep dive on it, especially that it's civil rights. We are primarily focusing on, like certain demographics that we should be, keeping those lenses on. So I would, again, I'm going to pause and see if somebody has an opinion.
I'm sorry, I had to step out for an emergency. A senior fell, so I'm back, but are we just reviewing the civil rights policy that you guys came up with and we're trying to vote on it or not, or?
So essentially where I'm coming at from being chair is I want to know how the room wants to proceed. If we want to just open it all up to you read it at your own leisure and you do the public comment side of things. However, if we do a formal like CTC, like is going to recommend the changes to TTAC, I personally, and this is just my thought, if we're going to do that, I would want us to go through all 49 pages as a committee, because of my idea of not giving anybody quote unquote homework outside of the meeting. I want to use our time for the meeting for that purpose. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and does the, do these differ from the Title VI policies that we already have in place at our current locations and bus services?
Yes, this is MAPA's civil rights policy,
Okay.
which is separate from any policies that your individual organizations have.
Okay, all right.
And I think, let me jump in real quick. I think this is an ongoing thing that MAPA must produce every 3 years. So we're required to produce this document. I think the last time we did this was back in 2021. And we're just trying to do a better job at transparency, sharing, and passing along some of the information. And I think the synopsis of what this document really is, for us as MAPA, it's one, our required federal assurance that we're meeting the civil rights and Title VI requirements, right? So as a federal funding agency, we have to make that explicit, and this is our explicit way of saying that. So it provides that federal assurance that we are meeting the intent of the civil rights laws. So that's one portion, and that's very kind of a weird way of saying this is our document for our federal assurance. So that's one aspect. Two, within this document, the main things that we're doing is one, reaffirming how we as an agency, MAPA, treats civil rights or Title VI complaints, right? So explicitly listing out the process of what the steps are if there is a Title VI violation, when we disperse any money, or when someone feels so inclined that, hey, something happened and it violated our civil rights. So it basically lists out the detailed steps. Now, those detailed steps, I'll just get down to it, have not really changed. Our step process still continues to be the same. What has changed is instead of making people print a form, write in all the information, the process that we're trying to achieve is to make the form into a PDF. Honestly, that has not really changed a whole lot. The same questions that we asked before continue to be asked. And then finally, the other thing that we do is do a language English proficiency check. So basically, we take the entirety of the region and do a 4-step process to meet certain language thresholds and kind of set the stage for how do we treat different languages within the region. Now, at this time, I believe none of the languages exceed the 4% threshold that we have across the board. And so it is a concern and it is an aspirational goal that MAPA is trying to achieve, but we don't meet that threshold unless it's a project by project basis where the concentration of different languages in a different corridor might exceed that 4% threshold. And in that case, we follow what we say in our plans. But other than that, it's an aspirational goal for the entire region as we see the demographics changing within our region. And that in and of itself is basically the entirety of the document. So from year to year, every 3 years when we do this, not a whole lot changes, to be honest. A lot of it is making reference back to the federal regulations and guidelines of what Title VI is, what a civil rights is, and what does LEP mean. So that's pretty much the basis of this document. So just giving you the cliff notes real quick so you guys have a sense of what we're doing. Again, this is something that we're taking to our committees, informing people. If you do wish to comment and do wish to take time to read it in more detail, we do ask for you to do that. We have our public comment form online for people to take. Please share it, spread it out to other people. Thanks.
Thanks, Carlos. And I did put a question in the chat that I don't know who might be the one to be able to answer, but I'd like to know if the document can be modified prior to 2027, or if there's a procedure that would allow for situations that are proven to be a violation. Ultimately, what I'm asking is this a final no exceptions, or is there a procedure if there is something deemed a violation?
We could amend it.
Okay.
And but it'll before we finalize it, it will be reviewed by state and federal partners. So if there are any glaring issues with it, we would hope to have those ironed out before we actually have it approved. But then, there would be opportunities to make adjustments to it. And I don't think we usually do, though. I can't remember us doing an amendment to the previous policy.
Thank you, because that kind of goes to I think the direction, and me, you, and Melanie can discuss it at the next one. But if it was final, of course, I would want to put everything that we have into it. Versus if it's able to be modified, I think going my original idea of reading at your own convenience. If you have public comment, utilizing the form that Carlos mentioned on the website. Kind of those things. where we could present it to TTAC that this was an active discussion, concerns were not shared, and kind of go from that route.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. And if we wanted to, there's probably a few sections that I could point out that would be of particular interest to the CTC. So, and we might talk about doing that too, but we can chat about it at our next agenda meeting.
All right. So, any further comment on this one? Otherwise, we can move forward to the next agenda item. Did you have a question or comment? All right. So we'll go ahead and go forward. So the mobility resource guide, ultimately, I'm sure there's edits. What we were kind of planning to do today is maybe kind of go through, initially, if I remember right, Court, we were wanting to go through what's on the website and then see if there was any modifications, and then future wise, see what recommendations or changes. I can't remember how we decided.
Yeah, I think it's kind of following what you were talking about in relation to the civil rights policy, that we can basically use the time to go through some of the stuff instead of giving everybody homework. Which I've got the guide up there. So there's kind of two parts to it. There's everything that we're currently listing on the website, and then there's the guide itself. And I think what what MAPA is primarily interested in knowing is whether some of the information is dated at this point. We've made a few updates, small updates in the interim, but also whether the format is still good, or if there's a different format we want to show this in, or if there's other ideas for how to get this information out. That's I think that's mostly it. Is if we're I don't remember when we actually completed the guide. Was it 21?
Yeah, it was.
The
I'm
last
pretty sure it
update?
was with Travis doing the updates, where I think my concern this whole time was being able to find it. Since Alicia shared the link, I have now bookmarked it. I don't know if that was a me issue or a search feature on the website, but I struggled every time. Me personally, knowing that it is such a valuable tool to essentially any of our clients, our staff here at Voc Rehab, I would kind of like to have some kind of clickable something on the front page of a link to the resource guide, or some way to make it easy to find. That's my ultimate goal.
Okay. And I'm taking notes while we're chatting about it. All right, and then the guide itself is here. Is this coming up for everybody? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And most of the information is here. It's a little hard to fit everything on the single screen, but basically what we tried to do is capture all of the providers in the region, going Metro, Moby, SWITA, Z-Trip, Council Bluffs, La Vista, Ralston, NCAP, Bellevue, and Papillion. And then in addition to that, some various health and other human services information on the right, going down this column.
In court, when it comes to organizations that are on this list, do they have to fit a certain criteria, like either government, nonprofit? Can somebody be like a privately owned transportation, something? Like, what are the guidelines on?
I don't think so. I don't think we had any restrictions. This was primarily either, members of this committee that wanted to be on the guide, or suggestions from members of the committee thinking that there was a particular agency that should be included in the list.
Because I know of a gentleman that essentially, and I need to have further conversations with him, but he provides a lot of transportation for individuals to and from the jobs, like to work. Where kind of if I go down that route, that road, I might end up having that conversation with you guys, because I've known of him for at least a couple years, but I would still like to kind of understand before, necessarily having some modification. But I'm thinking essentially, I can't be the only one that might know of somebody that does have their, individual service with however many vehicles, knowing that that is, for us, at least at VR, the number one barrier in most cases to employment, to life, kind of all of that in between. Think on it, and let's kind of come back and see what we need to continue to modify this, because I think that's where the resource sharing comes from, is going to be us, especially anybody that is in the human services side of working directly with job seekers or know of those one-off spends.
Yeah, I think it's typically been like more well established, kind of like agencies that have been around for a while. So ones that are fairly reliable to get a hold of. It may be that we could add a link to smaller providers, something that we, would be a little bit less permanent, because that when we create this guide, and then, we run prints of it, we want to make sure that the information is going to be good for a while. But if we, had a link collection to smaller providers that we could update regularly, I think that's a possibility. It's something we could talk about.
I like that, especially with the printed piece where, maybe even at the bottom, a QR code, of like check out, private transportation or something like that, and knowing kind of the things that are kind of down for like down the timeline. I know there was talk of a possible kind of like citywide, quote unquote, like rideshare program of some sorts. But I know contracts and stuff, isn't to that point. But I'm essentially talking about building it for the future, so you're not having to reprint.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It all looks looks good to me. The La Vista information is still accurate on here. One thought
Okay.
on the web page itself, weren't there some different like videos and tutorials on how to use some of these services? Would that be something to include on this page as well, or would that just clutter it up?
I want to say that if we did have that, I know Metro has a how to ride video. I don't know that we directly connect to that. I know all right, we do connect to their rider guide, their Mobi rider guide.
Yep, and then it's there.
But as far as fixed, we could also include the link to to the fixed route service if we wanted to. Most of this is focused on paratransit,
Yeah,
given
yep.
the CTC's kind of like, primary angle, but
Mhm.
there's not necessarily a reason why we couldn't link folks to fixed route stuff. Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
kind of,
I
maybe
think
it just is comes down to the, I don't know if it's My Ride or which app necessarily that's used. Maybe it's a reference to that, but I do like the idea of the rider guide somehow being mentioned, or I know it's hard once you start talking more than one QR code, but some connection back to it. Because I mean, let's face it, it's intimidating. Even when we joined or learned about it a few meetings ago, like it's all unknown, and therefore, it's okay to be hesitant on the service.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks, Kale.
Okay, so right now, what I'm looking at is we want to talk about maybe creating a larger online, like an electronic list with additional providers, if there are some that we want to include. We want to improve the findability of the guide. MAPA is working on an update to our website. It's kind of a longer term project. I think I've brought it up at previous meetings as we've discussed kind of the layout of MAPA's website. So I want to say that improving access to the guide would probably come with that, but I can look at ways that we can improve that on the existing site too, because I'm guessing it'll still be another year before our website update really goes into full swing. And then also adding additional kind of writer guide type media to the website.
And Court, when it comes to essentially both of these topics that we've talked about, the resource guide and the civil rights one, do you know if anybody from that refugee task force transportation one that you and I are in, do you know if either one of those was sent to them for public comment or review?
I apologize. Either one of what?
The Omaha Refugee Task Force Transportation Committee, either the civil rights public comment or the resource guide?
No, not to my knowledge. No, I don't believe so.
Okay. So maybe what I'll do is when you send that out to the committee, I can then send that way. And
Yeah.
essentially, because that'll help with some of the language component too.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you get anything out of today, bookmark the mobility resource guide. All right. Any other further comment on the resource guide? All right. What about any additional business?
I don't believe I have any additional business. Carlos, do you have anything that you'd like to share additionally with the committee?
Happy holidays.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
I mean, that's my only big thing. Thank you all that have served and continue to serve on this committee. We truly appreciate all the effort and time that you put into this. We're only successful because of you. Thank you very much. And with that, just happy holidays. Stay safe next week. If you are traveling, travel safe. If you're staying home with loved ones, we're wishing you all the best. I believe Court is not going to be here next week. Are you, Court? No, you're taking off.
Later,
So
later in the week. I'll be here
Yeah.
later in the week.
so congratulations to all, and to all a good night. Thanks.
That's great. And to mention one of Court's thing, if anybody was on the TTAC calendar invites, I think we all know this by now, but Google Calendar is not the most user friendly. So he did cancel all of those, and essentially was sending them out 1 month in advance.
And I think
So-
I will do that for CTC as well. There are right now there are future CTC meetings scheduled on folks' calendars, and in the interest of avoiding the same issue I ran into with TTAC, I will probably be following the same invitation schedule as TTAC. So what that means is sometime soon, probably maybe either later this week or late next week, I will remove all existing calendar invitations, which I'm not exactly sure how far out Google programs them, probably about a year. So you'll see kind of a wave of invitation deletions. And then I will only be sending out individual calendar invitations. And I'm going to try to do that about a month in advance so that you still have plenty of notice, so that it's on your calendar, but also so that you can be confident that what's on your calendar is accurate. Because the issue that we were running into is that the Google notification doesn't always play well with folks that are using Outlook, and you'll end up with more than one event on your calendar, and then we get people that show up for a meeting that doesn't exist, or it existed on your calendar but not officially. So we're trying to work around that. I wanted to make sure that we're getting everyone enough heads up for when the meeting is scheduled, but also I want to make sure that you're getting the most up-to-date information as things change, because sometimes we'll reschedule something if we need to, or something will be canceled, and I want to make sure everybody's getting that information.
I would propose an idea, at least to anybody on the call. I do have a standing save the date on my calendar that includes Melanie and Court. If anybody else wants to be added to that, where it's just to save the date, I'm more than happy to just add another name on there. And I think the only thing I have in the comment is a link to like where our agendas and stuff are housed. So depends. If a month is great for you, no worries. But if you need something more, I can help, or create it yourself. Yep, I'll add you, Tammy. I know this is a little future talk, and I know we just modified our bylaws. One talk that we had recently is that if essentially like leaving it up to co-chairs or somebody, that on time like this is that if we're not, so kind of going to that hybrid component, we'll leave everything as is, but on an opportunity that we deem virtual only for weather or other reason, if we do need to have some kind of voting or recommendation to send to TTAC, maybe looking at what that might look like. So of course, none of that's finalized or anything, but it's essentially just recent conversation for today. If there was something that we needed to do, kind of giving us a way out on the chance that, weather or other comes up. But, Court, do you have anything else?
No, there's nothing else from me, not presently.
All right, what about anybody in the committee? Any final comments or business? All right. Ultimately, happy holidays. Of course, be safe, all that stuff, and meeting adjourned. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.